Hello. This time this time was a little hectic. So I took a break before recording this, and I am currently just remembering why I don't do that. Like, my brain has already moved on. I'm gonna struggle. So bear with me. So I kind of didn't know what I was doing, which is a pretty common thing I say in these. But I thought, because I was like so out of it, I was like, it's probably gonna be a quicker one. Well, first off, I kind of procrastinated on getting started because I didn't know what I was gonna do. I was hoping something would come to me. It didn't, so I just kind of got started. I'm like, it'll be a quick one. It'll be a quick one because I tend not to spend a whole lot of time on ones that aren't like planned out well. You're just kind of like, this is a sketch. I'm just thinking about ideas, and maybe I'll have something next time. But instead, this time, I actually got really into it, and before I knew it, 3 hours had passed, which I wasn't planning on. I didn't eat before this. I didn't feel hungry, and then as soon as I finished drawing, I was ravenous. I had to, oh god, yeah, because I try to post have a drawing ready on Tuesday and start posting about it. For whatever reason, I also only start working on Tuesday. That is like the origin of my problem here. If I did this yesterday, it wouldn't have been an issue, but yeah. I really like her. I'm sorry to this drawing that I spent the beginning just rambling about how everything went wrong in my life, personally speaking, because of her. But I really like her. That's why it took so long, because I'm like, I can't abandon her. She's my child. I love her. So I felt I had to bring her to some kind of conclusion. And I kept moving the goalpost. So at this phase, I'm like, I'm just going to do a sketch. I'm going to get it all looking nice, and that's going to be it. It's just going to be kind of a monochromatic sketch. That changes. You've seen the thumbnail. I do decide to keep the sketch layer and not do a line art layer, which, there's pros and cons. I do kind of clean up the eyes a little bit. Like, I have this separate sketch for the eyelashes and the eyes. Kind of define the eyes a little bit more here and be a little neater with them, because see, that's really my issue with leaving things sketchier, is that sometimes I do that and then I don't feel like the face comes across. So I kind of cleaned up her eyes and darkened them so they stood out more in the final image. But I left the rest pretty rough. I clean up a few things as I go, but yeah. See, it's the first time in a while that I haven't felt bad about doing that. Because, I leave the sketch a lot of the times when I just don't want to deal with line art. And then I'm always, guilty. Because I'm like, I think you could have been better. But it's a little late in the process. It would be so much more difficult to line art after you do your colors and everything. But in this case, I'm like, it actually worked out. Because I feel like the texture of the sketch brush really helps the image in the end. But at this point, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. At this point, I'm still thinking, it's just a little doodle, just a little drawing. I'm thinking I'm finishing up at this point. I'm like, why don't I just flatten some colors? I feel like it'd be nicer. Here I kind of lowered the opacity of the one sketch layer and left the eye layer on full opacity, and then I decided her eyebrows kind of disappeared, so I added the darker color with the on the same eye layer, same one I used for the eyelashes, just to make them stand out a little bit more. They are pretty light. She's a redhead / her hair was pretty clearly auburn, but then I gave highlights and I did do some kind of shadows, but the highlights kind of were more prominent, so she's between that and a redhead now, I guess. So the sketch layer is at 75% opacity, I think. Yes. I'm not sure if it's exactly that or around that. Also, yeah, I know the voiceover eyes are pink. It will work in the end. It's just looking a little funny because the background's pink now. Background's white, sorry. I'm gonna change that. So at this point, I'm like still just like, I'm just gonna flat it in. I just wanna see what it'll look like. I'm just gonna pick some colors. Don't trust me. I should stop trusting myself. I don't already, but I should really stop. Here I am figuring out what hair color I want, which was really tricky because at this point, yeah, I had to decide to put her sketch layer that was, again, lower opacity. I also, which before this I was kind of using just to like get it to kind of blend with the colors of whatever was behind it. But at this point I made it a multiply layer. Because I was like, you know, I wanted her hair to be a little bit darker and richer in color. And it would have been weird with the sketch being so much lighter. So I did that because if I'd made her like a blonde, it would have worked with the sketch, but it would have been a lot of tan. Would have been a lot of like light colors. Like there's the pink, the light pink, and then there's this, her skin tone is pretty fair. And so I really was trying to avoid like all just like light colors. Cause like, yeah, pastel color schemes exist and are a thing. I didn't feel like it was my vibe today. So I did that. The way I'm doing this is Procreate, it makes it really easy to select a layer, so it'll just select everything in a layer. So I'm kind of painting over things I want to show. Because I wanted the hair on top because there are areas where the hair overlaps the face and stuff. But then on areas where the face overlaps the hair, I'm just selecting the face layer or the skin layer, and I'm kind of bringing it, I'm kind of erasing wherever the skin is in those areas. And then because you're able to like lock layers, you can really easily just kind of take a big airbrush and just slap some colors in there, which is what I'm doing here. I'm adding blushing and lip color. I also, before that, I made her skin tone a little pinker. I felt like the yellow was not really vibing with the other colors here. Added, again, some more red to the hair. Just because it's around this point where I'm like, okay, my light source is becoming more clear to me. And so I'm like, okay, I need to do something with this background because that was kind of a blah shade of like grayish purple. So I added this little like sun, moon, something. And then I'm like, oh, this is cool. I should like just, I don't know, shade it a little bit. Nothing too serious. Just gonna shade it a little bit. So I'm going over top with a multiply layer in purple, like a really pinkish, magenta-ish purple. Maybe just magenta, honestly. And I'm doing this on a multiply layer, and then I'm doing the same kind of selecting. Well, actually, I'm doing a little different. I'm selecting the layer that I'm drawing on, and then I'm selecting starting from the one on the bottom, and then I'm going up. And each time I'm kind of erasing what went over the lines because I wasn't very careful about, not overlapping my colors. And the reason I'm doing that instead of just doing like a clipping mask over each of them is because you have like a layer limit in Procreate. I actually have a really good like iPad right now. So even though I like my things to be big, like this is like, I think it's like 22 inches by 28 inches or something in Procreate size at 300 DPI. So like is sizable. It might even be a little bigger, but I think that's the right size. Because I do like a thing with imprint, so it will be potentially printed if someone buys it. It's available for print. So I want it to be kind of as big as possible. So I actually do have a good iPad right now that can handle that and still give me layers, but I used to work on this like secondhand iPad I got for like $80. It used to belong to a school. It was not high powered. It was so, I got the new iPad because it was so old it could not even work with the first generation Apple Pencil. But I used to use that and just have no pen sensitivity. Just like wing it with like a standard stylus rather than a pressure sensitive one. But that kind of has influenced my layer philosophy because that one, oof, even on like lower, smaller size ones, you'd have like 10 or 11 layers, maybe. Not at this size. Oh my god, this size would not be workable unless you're doing like maybe one layer with a few edits. Yeah, so I'm traumatized. I always try and like conserve layers to a degree it doesn't even make sense. So that's why I did all of my shading on the same layer. Yeah, I went from color dodge to add, I think. No, it was like over. I don't know what layer style that is. You can look at the one and see if you know what it is. Might be add. I don't know. It's the same layer style, but I kind of made it pure white instead of a yellow like I had with the hair, and it's on a different layer because I wanted it over top of the sketch layer. But I think it's under the eye layer. Yeah. I'm just kind of highlighting things. We're kind of reaching the minor edits phase of this really quick and easy sketch that happened to take like 3 hours. Yeah, that really threw me behind because like not just the drawing time, but like when you draw for a long time, you have more footage, and every phase of editing is now going to take longer. So, I'm so tired. It was a day. Last step was I just kind of dulled the bow out a little bit because I felt it was stealing attention from her eyes. And we're done.